She told them clearly to keep out. They refused to listen, so she decided they would never dare to return. Tasha Williams had earned everything through her own effort. Now 42 years old, she took great pride in her home. A beautiful house with 2 floors sat in Chandler, Arizona. Her backyard was where she found peace. Tall palm trees stood along the fence, and right in the center was her prized possession, a sparkling, perfectly maintained pool. She wasn't one to brag, but she had good reason to feel accomplished. She purchased the house entirely on her own with nobody's assistance, just many years of careful saving and wise decisions. Her neighborhood consisted mainly of families, some welcoming, others keeping their distance. Tasha wasn't bothered either way. All she wanted was some quiet. But that quiet vanished quickly. The first incident didn't seem like much, so she brushed it aside. One Saturday afternoon, she returned home to discover wet footprints trailing from her backyard gate all the way to the street. Initially, she figured it must have been a maintenance person. Then she noticed a drenched towel thrown carelessly across her fence. She went to inspect the pool. The water level had dropped. Her inflatable float had been shifted. An open soda can, half-finished, rested on her lounge chair. Somebody had entered her private space. She forced herself to remain composed. Perhaps it was an honest mistake. Perhaps some child had hopped the fence and bolted. But when she questioned nearby residents, they simply shrugged it off. Most likely just neighborhood kids, one lady remarked, chuckling. That's just how young people behave. A different neighbor, a gentleman around 50, barely glanced up from working on his vehicle. They're only enjoying themselves. Your pool looks fantastic, Miss Williams. People can't help but notice. His tone bothered her deeply, but she decided to move past it. She installed a stronger lock on her gate, hoping the problem was solved, but she was wrong. 7 days later, she was indoors when splashing sounds reached her ears. At first, she assumed it was the filtration system. Then came giggling voices. She peered outside. A teenage boy was swimming as if the place belonged to him. A girl, possibly his sibling, perched at the pool's edge, dangling her feet into the water. Tasha threw the door open. "What do you think you're doing?" The kids went still. The boy climbed out frantically. I assumed you wouldn't care," he stuttered nervously. "You never bothered to ask permission," Tasha said sharply. "Who exactly are you?" The girl mumbled something about living close by. Then both kids took off running. Tasha remained standing there, absolutely livid. She wanted to forget about it, but then the excuses started flowing. The following day, she approached the teenager's parents, anticipating an apology. What she received instead was pushback. "Oh, lighten up," the mother responded. "They're children. The weather's scorching. What's your issue?" Tasha stared in disbelief. "My issue is this is my private property, my house, my pool, and nobody was invited." The father folded his arms defensively. "You're being dramatic. That's the label people use when they're not the ones facing disrespect." Tasha swallowed her rage. She installed security cameras instead. Perhaps that would end the intrusions. For 14 days, everything seemed fine. No footprints appeared. No soggy towels showed up. No uninvited swimmers. Then, one sweltering Saturday, she arrived home to find her side gate standing wide open, the same one she always secured. A sinking feeling washed over her. She made her way to the backyard, and the scene stopped her cold. Her entire yard was filled with people, not children alone, but grown adults as well. Her patio furniture was occupied. Beer bottles were scattered everywhere. Someone had actually brought a folding table loaded with snacks. Her pool was packed. Several women stood chest-deep in the water, chatting away. A man lounged against the side, sipping his drink and grinning. For just a moment, Tasha questioned whether this was actually happening. Could this be real? She moved forward slowly, looking around at everyone. Then her gaze met one of her neighbors, Sandra from down the street, 3 houses away. Sandra, who had never exchanged words with Tasha previously, waved casually like this was some planned event. "Hey there, we hope this is okay," Sandra shouted cheerfully. "The heat is unbearable today. We thought we'd take a dip." Tasha's teeth clenched tight. "Okay? Nothing about this was okay." Her words came out icy and steady. "Everyone here needs to leave immediately." Several people stopped moving. Others glanced at each other as though she was being unreasonable. Sandra's eyes rolled dramatically. Oh, quit acting like that. It's only a pool. You weren't even around! Tasha moved closer, anger building beneath the surface. It's not simply a pool. It belongs to me. This house belongs to me. This yard belongs to me. None of you live here. None of you contribute to the bills. So leave right now, all of you. Someone whispered, "Wow, what's wrong with her?" That pushed Tasha over the edge. She walked straight to the equipment storage box, found the remote control, and powered down the filtration system. Then she yanked the audio cable from the portable speakers. Complete silence fell. "The police are being called," she declared firmly. Finally, they reacted. Beverages were grabbed hastily. Towels were snatched up. In just a few minutes, her yard stood empty once more. Sandra, however, had the audacity to shoot her an angry look while departing. "There's no need to act so superior," she muttered bitterly. "We weren't destroying anything." Tasha wanted to scream at her. Instead, she stood rigid, watching them exit as if she were somehow the villain. She slammed the gate closed hard, locked it securely, and stood there with her hands on her waist, fuming. But one reality was obvious. This situation wasn't finished. They showed her zero respect. And if respect couldn't deter them, something stronger would have to. Tasha had attempted every reasonable approach. Conversations, logic, surveillance cameras, better locks. Nothing changed their behavior. Now it was time to use her creativity. She sat down at her kitchen table, reviewing the security video from earlier that day. The sheer boldness of these neighbors behaving as though her property existed for their convenience whenever they pleased. Her anger had transformed into something else. She was finished playing nice, and if they continued treating her pool like a community recreation center, she would guarantee their next unauthorized visit became their final one. First stop was the local hardware shop. She purchased 2 industrial-strength locks, one meant for the side gate, another for the equipment box. The previous locks worked fine, but these newer ones were virtually impossible to break. Following that, she searched online and ordered a specialized pool treatment. Not standard chlorine, something more strategic. It posed no health risks, just an intelligent method used by community swimming facilities to identify rule breakers. The product was pool dye, a harmless additive that transforms water into a brilliant green color if someone urinates in it. Exactly. If any of those unwelcome guests attempted another swim, they would emerge looking like they'd been painted neon. But that represented only phase 1. Tasha wanted absolute certainty, something that would frighten them away permanently. So she visited a nearby sign printing business and commissioned a custom warning notice. The following morning, she mounted it prominently on her fence where nobody could miss it. Warning: pool chemically treated for unauthorized entry. Contact may result in skin rash, intense itching, or temporary color changes to skin. Did it seem excessive? Absolutely. Was it truthful? No, but they had no way of knowing otherwise. To increase believability, she positioned an empty container labeled for hazardous chemicals beside the pump, something borrowed from someone she knew in building maintenance. Now all that remained was waiting. The wait wasn't long at all. The next blazing afternoon, Tasha positioned herself near her window, enjoying cold tea and observing. The day passed uneventfully until 2 young teenagers strolled past her fence line. They paused, studied the warning sign carefully. One whispered to the other, then gestured toward the chemical container. Seconds later, they turned completely around and walked away. Tasha grinned with satisfaction. Later, when darkness fell, Sandra, the identical rude neighbor from the uninvited pool gathering, was walking her dog when the sign caught her attention. She leaned in close to read it, then pulled out her cell phone and started tapping away. Tasha looked at Facebook shortly after. Sure enough, there it was, a new post in the community online group. Just so everyone knows, it appears Tasha added some sort of strange chemical to her pool. The sign warns it causes rashes and skin issues. Not entirely sure that's safe. Just giving you all a warning. The responses flooded in immediately. Oh no, what happens if it seeps into the soil? That can't possibly be legal. Why is she making such a big deal? It's just water, Tasha burst out laughing. Their anger wasn't because she'd misled them or because they got exposed. They were upset because their days of free pool access had ended. And if they wanted to challenge her on it, good luck with that. For the first time in many months, Tasha experienced genuine peace. No more random towels appearing. No more strangers invading her space. No more entitled behavior from neighbors. Her strategy had succeeded, or at least she believed it had. Then someone knocked at her door. It happened on a Thursday evening when she heard it, aggressive, impatient pounding against her front door. She set down her beverage and looked through the peephole. Sandra stood there, arms crossed tightly, looking absolutely furious. Tasha released a tired breath. Here comes trouble. She pulled the door open, maintaining a neutral expression. Can I help you? Sandra wasted zero time. We need to have a conversation. Tasha lifted one eyebrow questioningly. Do we really? Sandra exhaled sharply. Listen, I'm not sure what your issue is, but people are claiming you've added dangerous chemicals to your pool. Tasha blinked slowly, then allowed herself a small smile. I did exactly that, she replied calmly. To prevent uninvited visitors. Sandra's jaw tightened visibly. You can't just do that. What if some child makes contact with the water? Tasha crossed her own arms. A child who trespassed onto my property? Sandra faltered briefly. That's beside the point. It's precisely the point, Tasha countered firmly. I told people repeatedly to stay away. They ignored me, so I took necessary measures. Sandra made a dismissive sound. You're being absurd. You don't even have children. The pool just sits there being wasted. Tasha angled her head slightly. So because I don't have children, my pool becomes community property? Sandra's eyes rolled again. Oh, please, Tasha interrupted her. No, you please, Sandra. You and everyone else have incredible nerve. You don't cover my water expenses. You don't maintain my pool. But somehow you believe you can just use it freely? Sandra's face flushed red. Well, if you weren't so cold and unwelcoming, perhaps people would actually enjoy your company. Tasha laughed genuinely. A deep, authentic laugh. That's your fundamental problem, Sandra. You believe being liked requires letting people disrespect you. Sandra's mouth opened, then closed again. Eventually, she shook her head in frustration. You know something? Forget this conversation. She pivoted to walk away. Tasha called out behind her. Have fun using your garden hose this summer. Sandra marched off angrily. Tasha closed the door, allowing herself a satisfied smile. They were angry, certainly, but the message had finally gotten through to them. Just as a precaution, she reinforced her defenses. The next morning, she added one final element. Motion-sensing sprinklers positioned along the fence perimeter. If anyone attempted to sneak inside, they would receive an ice-cold shock. But the truly wonderful part was she never needed to activate them. Nobody made another attempt. The days of freeloading had ended permanently. After months of dealing with frustration, Tasha had successfully reclaimed her peace of mind. The pool belonged to her once again. The backyard returned to its quiet state. The entitled attitudes disappeared. And the most satisfying part was she never had to involve the police because that was never her objective. She never wanted conflict or to create enemies. She simply wanted respect for what belonged to her. But here's an important truth. Some individuals will never respect your boundaries unless you force them to acknowledge those limits. Tasha had started out being kind. She'd issued warnings clearly. She'd even requested politely, and they'd disregarded her every single time. But the instant she stood her ground and fought back, they retreated, because ultimately, people will take whatever you permit them to take. It makes no difference whether it's your time, your personal space, your emotional energy, or even your swimming pool. If you fail to establish boundaries, someone will walk directly over you. So was Tasha being petty in her approach? Perhaps slightly. Was she in the wrong? Absolutely not. What about your experiences? Have you ever needed to stand firm when others attempted to take advantage of you? Or even better, how would you have managed this situation? Leave your thoughts in the comments section and let's discuss it together. And if this story resonated with you, please remember to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell for additional content. Thanks for spending your time here, and always remember that respect must be earned, never simply handed out freely. Now let me share something important about what happened after all this drama settled down. About 3 weeks went by since Tasha's clever plan worked perfectly. Life returned to normal. Her mornings became peaceful again. She could enjoy her coffee on the patio without worrying about unwanted visitors. The pool sparkled clean, untouched by strangers. She finally felt like her home was truly hers. But something interesting started happening in the neighborhood. Word spread quickly about what Tasha had done. Some people thought she went too far. Others quietly admired her courage. The neighborhood dynamic shifted completely. People who used to walk past her house casually now crossed to the other side of the street. Sandra stopped making eye contact altogether. The teenagers who once saw her fence as an easy target now gave her property a wide berth. Tasha noticed these changes, and honestly, she didn't mind one bit. She never wanted to be the neighborhood's best friend anyway. She just wanted basic respect, and now she had it. But here's where things got really interesting. Other neighbors started coming to her for advice. A woman named Maria from 2 blocks over knocked on her door one evening. She looked exhausted and frustrated. Maria explained that her garage had become a hangout spot for neighborhood kids without permission. They'd leave trash everywhere and never asked to use the space. Tasha listened carefully and shared her experience. She explained the importance of setting clear boundaries immediately, not waiting for problems to get worse. She talked about documentation, cameras, and making sure everything is done legally. Maria thanked her profusely and left with a plan. Within a week, Maria's garage problem was solved. She'd installed cameras and put up proper signage, just like Tasha suggested. Then came Robert, an elderly man who lived alone. His backyard shed kept getting broken into by local teenagers looking for a place to hang out. They weren't stealing anything, but they were trespassing and leaving messes behind. Robert felt helpless, because whenever he confronted them, they'd just laugh and come back later. Tasha advised him to install motion sensor lights and a simple alarm system. She also suggested he document every incident with photos and timestamps. Robert followed her advice, and the break-ins stopped completely. What Tasha discovered through these interactions changed her perspective entirely. She realized she wasn't alone in facing these boundary issues. Many people in the neighborhood struggled with similar problems, but felt too intimidated to take action. They worried about being labeled as mean or unfriendly. They feared confrontation and judgment from others. But Tasha had shown them something powerful. Protecting what's yours isn't mean, it's necessary. One afternoon, while Tasha was working in her front garden, a younger neighbor named Jessica approached her. Jessica was in her late 20s, recently married, and had just bought her first home. She seemed nervous but determined. Jessica shared that her new neighbors kept parking in her driveway without asking. At first, she let it slide, thinking they'd eventually stop. But it continued happening almost daily. She felt disrespected but didn't know how to address it without causing neighborhood drama. Tasha put down her gardening tools and gave Jessica her full attention. She shared a crucial lesson she'd learned through her own experience. Being polite doesn't mean being a doormat. Tasha explained that the longer you allow disrespectful behavior to continue, the harder it becomes to stop it. People get comfortable with taking advantage, and they start believing they have a right to do so. Jessica listened intently, taking mental notes of everything Tasha said. Tasha suggested Jessica start with a friendly but firm conversation, making her boundaries crystal clear. If that didn't work, she should leave a polite note on the windshield. And if the problem persisted, she shouldn't hesitate to have the car towed, which was completely within her legal rights. Jessica looked relieved to have a concrete plan. She thanked Tasha warmly and walked away with newfound confidence. These conversations taught Tasha something valuable about herself. She'd always seen herself as someone who just wanted to be left alone, someone who didn't need community connections. But now she realized she could be a resource for others facing similar struggles. She wasn't trying to be a neighborhood hero or seeking attention. She simply understood what it felt like to have your boundaries violated and your property disrespected. As weeks turned into months, Tasha's reputation evolved. She was no longer just the woman with the pool who caused drama. She became known as someone who stood up for herself and helped others do the same. People respected her, even if they didn't always agree with her methods. And that respect meant everything. One Saturday morning, Tasha decided to do something she hadn't done in months. She invited Maria, Robert, and Jessica over for a small gathering by her pool. Yes, the same pool she'd fought so hard to protect. But this time, it was on her terms, with people she chose to welcome into her space. They sat by the water, sharing stories and laughing about their neighborhood battles. It felt good to connect with people who understood the importance of boundaries and mutual respect. During that gathering, Maria raised an interesting point. She said that standing up for yourself often inspires others to do the same. When one person refuses to accept disrespect, it gives permission for others to follow suit. That's exactly what had happened in their neighborhood. Tasha's bold actions had created a ripple effect, encouraging others to protect their own spaces and demand the respect they deserved. This story isn't just about a pool or entitled neighbors. It's about something much bigger. It's about the courage it takes to stand firm when everyone around you thinks you're overreacting. It's about recognizing that your peace and your property matter, regardless of what others think. And most importantly, it's about understanding that setting boundaries doesn't make you difficult or unfriendly. It makes you someone who values themselves enough to demand basic respect. So here's my question for you. When was the last time you stood up for yourself, even when it felt uncomfortable? Have you ever let someone take advantage of you just to avoid conflict? And looking back, do you wish you'd handled things differently? These are important questions to consider because boundary issues happen to everyone at some point. Remember Tasha's journey the next time someone tries to overstep your boundaries. Whether it's a neighbor, a colleague, a friend, or even a family member, you have every right to protect what's yours. You don't need to be aggressive or mean about it, but you do need to be firm and consistent. And if people call you petty or dramatic for standing your ground, let them. Their opinion matters far less than your peace of mind. The truth is, people will always test your limits. They'll push and see how much they can get away with. And if you don't push back, they'll keep taking and taking until there's nothing left. That's not being pessimistic, that's just reality. But the good news is you have the power to stop it at any time. All it takes is the decision to value yourself enough to say no. If you enjoyed this story and found it meaningful, make sure to share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments about how you would handle a situation like this. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like these. Until next time, stay strong, protect your peace, and never apologize for having boundaries.